was sent to by one of our listeners called Mr. Carrier, right? So it is not predominantly from the continent, but we are just paying homage to Carrier, who says, whoever stops his brother from becoming a king also stops himself from becoming the king's brother. Okay, Menton, go for it.
I think I've encountered that, but generally I think how I look at that is that if greatness is within proximity, you would rather help it manifest, because then you also have got access, as opposed to when it's far off. As in, if there is a potential where you actually have got access, you would rather help ensure that it actually sees light of day, because you have got access, you have got proximity, as opposed to what we used to do when we were small boys, that if I don't get the biggest chunk, then no one else has it. Yeah.
Mutege, how would you interpret it?
It's about the story of these people. You know, the story of being a dog in a major, that I will stop you. I don't want you to get, but I know I can't get it. But also, when you look at it as in the perspective of we rise by lifting others. So if you don't lift, if you want to, you can't rise by pulling others down. So, but when you pull others, you never know where your paths will cross, and it will help you.
Indeed.
Yep.
That's it. As we look at the year in review and the many things that did happen, of course, the imagination is that these things will take a political skew, that you never really are rid of politics when you're looking into the situations in a country. So let's look at 2025. 2025 came off of 2024, which was, many would say, a tumultuous year in Kenya, whereby the protests took place, and that meant that certain things were going to happen as a result of that. We saw, okay, maybe there was no finance bill, and then we saw that essentially come back. Everything, and confirmed by the Speaker of the majority, rather the Leader of the majority in the National Assembly, that everything in the finance bill essentially made its way back into Kenya's finance laws. We saw a number of other things happen. We saw that other protests happen, political and civic events happen in 2025, especially with Saba Saba. We saw security incidents. We saw infrastructure proclamations. We also saw that housing, affordable housing, were things that then were focused on greatly by President Ruto. We saw a lot of international trade and regional engagement. And then we saw the death of Raila Odinga in October, which then for many then has charted or starts to chart what direction we're taking going into the future. Let's take an overview of your take and what it means for Kenya Arnold in terms of what happened in 2025.
Well, I think 2025 has been very many things, but of course at the very top, the banner is the loss of Raila Odinga and what that really means. At the time when Raila was still alive, broad-based government's popularity was at 22%. His death alone has actually doubled that up. Yesterday's poll by TIFA showed that now broad-based government is actually at 44%. I say that because if you were here in 2024, you knew that William Ruto and his case were literally a basket case. So that for me really says so much, that if you try to contextualize how this year has been the year where you will actually say how the Raila exit defines the political field going forward. And why is that important? It's important because then we have got about 18 months to go to the elections. And if it's anything, you realize that the government has actually picked up a little bit of momentum. The broad-based William Ruto have picked up a little bit of momentum. And the united opposition, or the one-term brigade, you will actually think there's groping in darkness. Little bit of where you don't see so much activity, coherence. Moving in, of course, you can argue that it's probably strategy, that probably they've taken what you would call stand two. They have picked position and they are silent, waiting to attack. But strategy is not spoken about. It's actually acted on. But then most interestingly is that the president has been able to repackage himself, which then should worry all of us, including myself, who are part and parcel of the one-term brigade, that he's now singing. You know, the president does very well on car-top politics. He does very well. He's quite a good artist. Today, no one talks about the plan. No one talks about bottom-up. The president is actually already teasing his new release, his new song. And you can actually feel it. It's almost a rendition of tumetoka analog to digital. Now he's actually moving. You can actually feel it. You know, like DJ Billy, he's giving us that beat about tumetoka bottom up to Singapore. Tumetoka bottom up to Singapore,
But did the bottom up work? As in, did it work, the bottom up, from your point of view?
As in, for him, people have forgotten. And you might not really probably appreciate this, but unfortunately, when it comes to politics, nuance, complexities don't win elections. It's emotions. If you want to talk about facts, figures, numbers, evidence, and everything else, you appeal to elites like the people in this room. But if you want power like William Ruto is looking for, and all of us probably are looking for, the people who are in the political practice, you appeal to emotions.
But surely at some point, even though you appeal to my emotions, I mean, come on, Arnold, you can tell me every day that you love me, but at some point I'm going to want to imagine that I will see a physical manifestation of that love. I keep giving the story of Okeke and his wife and the chicken that never came, until one day he comes home and he finds his wife in the neighbor's house actually eating chicken. Now, do with that imagery what you want, but at the end of the day, it is, you can ride on the emotions, sure, but at some point the people would imagine that you would do something that would actually land this plane, no?
Let me just actually, you know, like you are reasoning and putting out a very good story, but then let me remind you that you do not win elections by way of truth. You don't speak in truth. If it were a language, you don't speak in truth, you speak in narrative. And people, these conversations are so easy, it has to be binary. So easy. Sisi tuko na plan, wale wako planless.
Okay.
Sisi, like for example, if we were to look at it from the way you actually are trying to proceed, would be this. Look at what the president has done now. Quickly, we've really changed. We've even amended the constitution without necessarily changing the constitution. The president tricked parliament, for example, this year to pass a law that allows parliament, or rather parliament ceded its power to oversee the sale of public assets. He plays long ball. Then he's come up with what you would call the infrastructure fund.
Yeah.
So the infrastructure fund, we will talk about very flowery language around equity and everything around that. But you know what the president is doing technically? Two things. The president learned from 2024 that budgets are very polarizing. So the president is avoiding budgeting process. He wants a constant pot where he can pick money at will. He doesn't want budgets. He's running away from the budgeting process because 2024 taught him never to go that direction. He already also knows that if we were to do debt the traditional way, he will have to go back to parliament and ask for raising of the ceiling. And it's so easy for the detractors to actually tell people, here, we are going for more debt. So he takes another route. Now, talking about we are creating a fund, and in that fund, we are leveraging yada yada and everything else. Already, parliament has ceded its power to oversight sale of public assets. So you create a fund. That fund, you sell Safaricom, drop in the money, sell other assets again, because now Parliament does not have to oversight that. They've surrendered that. It's unconstitutional, actually. But Parliament has already surrendered that. But people didn't see it going that route. So what then happens is that you're going to see this language. You will hear the language of securitizing that particular fund immediately. That has not been spoken now of. But once it actually becomes effective, you will hear them talking about, we have got a 5 trillion fund here. We are already putting in money. Now we securitize that. And quickly you can raise probably 1 or 2 or 3 trillion until by way of securitization. And then you have got activities running all over. if you were to sit down and tell anybody going to Western today that route we have taken is expensive. You are talking about facts, figures, and numbers and nuance. It needs intelligence. It needs patience. It needs a lot of thinking. People will tell you that when they were building Thika Road, they did not care about us. Now that the road is actually coming to our place, you want to bring us Kizungumingi. They will not understand you. So that beats you out. You will not actually win that particular debate. So the voter does not reason as rational as we are. And William Ruto knows that. That's why I actually will tell you that he's the greatest propagandist of our time. So if you are
politician, isn't he?
If you were to look at 2026, it's the year of William Ruto. So for the people who organize, like the rest of us who are organizing to face him, we actually must actually have that in mind, that he has decided that it's not going to be so easy. Look at last night.
Yeah.
He launched the houses in Mukuru. And do you know what
Part
it is?
two.
You can actually see the fireworks and everything. You can literally hear that song sing in your mind. Tumetoka bottom up to Singapore. Tumetoka bottom up to Singapore. Already it's playing out, and all of you have forgotten 2024, 200 plus people dead, abducted, and everything
All
else.
of who?
What I'm talking about, look at social media today. Look at social media. Look at the sentiment. All of you have forgotten that the Sabasaba this year, more people died in Sabasaba this year than they died in the original Sabasaba in 1990. As in, that is how spinning DJ Billy has actually played around.
But I think even as we talk about spinning, right? So, Bosco, now there is the question of, are Kenyans so gullible that we would see Sabasaba many dead, would see Kenyans 2024 go to the streets and say no to the finance bill? Then we have the leader of majority saying, you know what, hiyo vitu mlifanya never really dented anything because everything ended up back into the financial laws. But then, aside from that, one asks the question, are we so gullible as a country that we have forgotten, and has that been the story of 2025? Because today we are saying tumetoka bottom up, tumeenda Singapore.
Thank you very much, Dennis, and look for this chance. And I will start on a different note. And first of all, I want to talk about the accidents that are happening at the moment. I want to give my own condolences to the families that have lost their members, and ask the drivers and the Kenyans in general, let us be more vigilant during this Christmas to avoid careless driving or to avoid deaths that are unavoidable. Looking into the year, I'll start from what you have talked about, especially the Gen Zs. We have seen Gen Zs globally. They have taken charge of their space, and the Gen Zs world over, they are correcting their governments, they are correcting bad leadership, they are correcting siasa ya kujipiga kifua. When you look at Tanzania recently, we saw what happened. We have seen Gen Zs even in USA. Black Lives Matters. We look at South Africa, about the school fees. We look at Nigeria. Mainly, I'm just saying that the Gen Zs have been fighting for their rights world over, not only in Kenya. And bring it back home, in this year we were saddened by the death of Ojwang, dying in the hands of police, being taken by the father to a police station, or rather being handed to the police, and the father traveling all the way with a title deed, coming to release his son, only to find a body. We are talking about Boniface, who was shot by a policeman at close range. I mean, those are things that are not pleasing to our ears, to our eyes in the 21st century. After over 50 years in this country, having come the far we have come. I mean, some of these things we are seeing could be maybe in some other countries, in our neighboring countries. Looking in the year also, we are looking at, of course, the fall of the enigma, Raila Odinga. Some people never expected it. People said they thought Raila Odinga would never die. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Raila Odinga's death has also brought a turnaround in our politics in one way or the other. Moving into the future, 2026, 2027, that will be seen. This is the year we have had a Gen Z recently who was hugging a tree. Very serious initiative there. which is almost replacing or following the footsteps of Professor Wangari Maathai. So this is an year that we have had very serious things that are really shaping our country. As I focus on mainly one of the major things that happened, Raila Odinga's death has, in one way or the other, affected who will be our president in 2027. Because when you look at the divisions that are happening or the drums that are beating of division in ODM, it will have a lot of impact on who becomes president in 2027. Also, his death, no one expected it, and Raila Odinga had already put his troops in a broad-based government. As my mentor here talked about the broad-based government and what happened last night about Singapore, it is something that Kenyans are discussing and asking themselves several questions. It's the year also we have had, as we talk about Singapore and the politics, we have had by-elections last month, which the by-elections also some people are saying a referendum or are giving an indicator who is going to win in 2027. So all these things throughout this year, there are things that are really shaping our country in different frontiers. And as we talk about the Singapore dream, the president says he's picking up from bottom up, now bringing people up. I saw in a tweet, or rather on social media yesterday, Sonko saying, is it Mukuru, Singapore? And we see the pomp and color that was done with the launch of this project. I think to some people in Mukuru who have lived there, those houses could be their Singapore, if you ask me. Because someone who is coming from sewage, lack of good sanitation, lack of even some place to put up, to them it could be their Singapore moment. While I say that, this country also has a problem with unemployment of our young people, I may not agree that 100% that affordable housing is the only way to solve the unemployment issue. However, it could be one of the things that will help to contribute. But as I say that about the year, it's the year that we are doing voter registration, continuous voter registration. We saw the apathy that we had in 2022. Out of 22 million voters, we had only 14 million voters who came to vote in 2022. We have seen the same voter apathy in this by-election. Yes. And so I think it's a reflection and a question for the young people and Gen Zs to ask themselves, in as much as they are doing protest, in as much as we are pushing the agenda to change the government, which other way can you do it? So I would encourage them in the end to take a vote, and not only taking it and making sure they vote, because the bad leaders are voted by the good citizens who never vote.
Arnold, we look at a situation where with the death of Raila Odinga, we have ODM that now one would say no one knows where it's headed. We have sides that are pulling both on their sides. There are those who we are here beyond 2027. There are those who we are here until 2027. Which way ODM, and what does this mean in the political landscape? And if at all President William Ruto will have an opportunity to encapsulate ODM as a whole?
Just before I respond to that, I just needed to talk to Bosco and let him know that even as he encourages young people to actually go and take votes, it's important to remind Kenyans that technically, on paper, it's almost impossible to steal votes in Kenya. There are only two ways of stealing elections in this country. Number one, you subdue voter registration, and number two, you discourage voter turnout. So when IBC starts to do continuous voter registration, the state, which actually knows that it's actually not in very good books of young people, introduces something that distracts young people the same week. The same week, they introduce Nyota, make it more popular, put it a lot of money. So young people are busy chasing Nyota, which they will not, it will not be so many people getting it.
No.
And they forget about voter turnout. And there's something called the bandwagon effect. So after a week or two, IBC saying that young people are not turning up, so now it looks like, is it even important?
But they're busy doing something else.
Yeah.
So it's that distraction. It's working very well, by the way. So unless somebody comes out and takes care of that, I can tell you that the people who are looking for power in 2027 are not joking. And if you know how they ensure that there is no voter turnout, look at Malava, look at Mbere, the by-elections. Is that on the day of elections, you have ways and means to ensure that the opponents, people do not turn up. That is how you effectively rig an election. So we are talking about ODM. I was also of the initial thinking that ODM didn't know where it's going. But I think after Raila's death, all of us know where ODM is going.
Where is it going?
Where is it going?
Number one, ODM is going to remain in broad-based government. They are not going anywhere. That is decided. Anyone in ODM who does not agree with that will have to be bumped off. And I'll tell you how that actually works. Number one, broad-based government, all of a sudden now with Raila's death, that is how cold death is. That with Raila's exit, initially when he was still around, there was still signs that probably he could bolt and something else. So whatever mathematics you will do, you will have to factor him in as a major player. Now with his exit, now that factor has been taken rather out of the equation. And therefore, now broad-based government goes up to 44%. And if you look at how these BBG guys won the by-elections, they will push an election so close to the other one. Even if they are lower by about 3 points, 4 points. Yeah. And then the last week, they push it up and then topple it over. So already, once you have got BBG at 44%, it means that the election is almost closed in. So for ODM, I do not think, and I don't believe, even if William Ruto were to stand in Kisumu, in the middle of the street, Odinga Street, and shot somebody, the core ODM vote will still vote for him. He just needs to say he did it in the name of Raila Odinga. Because for everything they asked, you want Talanta Stadium to be named after Raila Odinga? He gives you. He gave in to state burial, military honors. There are a number of things that have actually been done out there. It will be impossible, even if you think hard, for you to convince an ordinary, traditional ODM voter that there is any other way. Look at this. And you guys are actually going to say this. These things you can always tell. Politics is so simple. As we go to 2027, a basic propaganda like, if we vote in the united opposition, Gachagua will actually erase Raila's name from Talanta Stadium. Will be sufficient to actually ensure that a traditional ODM voter does not vote on the other side. So for them, they will be quote unquote resisting recolonization and safeguarding the gains they have made. There is a pyre in Homa Bay. How do you tell that mama there? You see these things that are happening here. If the united opposition shows up, these are the people who had taken development elsewhere. We are now building a road from Nairobi to Mau Summit, and we are bringing the SGR to Kisumu and then to Malaba. How do you tell somebody from that end that if that whatever is happening will give us debt and whatever? He will ask you, like I told you earlier on, you guys had the Thika Road done. You didn't complain. You have got Mau roads working on that. Why is it that siku ile inafanywa kwetu ndio mnatuletea kizungu mingi? So those arguments, they are very basic. I'm telling you that the traditional ODM voter is already decided. And you know what? Because there is a scarecrow in Rigathi Gachagua. Rigathi Gachagua is actually the perfect scarecrow. He has had a few misspeaking here. So you just need to pick a few of Rigathi Gachagua's old misspeaking and use them to scare the ODM voter. By the way, an ordinary person will actually just be seated out there thinking, okay, but they are saying the truth. But the problem is that Rigiji will bring in the shares argument. So it's easy for them, number one, to use the development stuff they have done. And by the way, like I told you, the narrative has just to be binary.
Yeah.
We are bringing you a road. For 60 years of independence, you guys have been suffering. There is so much that is happening on the road, blah, blah, blah. Now we have brought you a road, wameanza kuleta hii issue. Then the Nyoro is making a lot of sense when he speaks about this new equity approach that we are picking. Yeah. We are running away from the traditional way of doing debt. Now we are still stacking up more debt. It could actually end up being more expensive. But no one will listen to Ndindi Nyoro, especially those opposed to him, because it will be, since these things are coming on this side, they are now asking questions. But since William Ruto still wants to split Mount Kenya, he tells the people of Thika, we are bringing you an expressway. So he's balancing everybody. You put people into micro groups and then manage them. So as to the question of ODM, I'll tell you, ODM is not going to be democratic. We had hoped that probably there will be a lot of orphans. There will not be orphans.
Why?
Because there is a scarecrow in Rigiji. Then there is the goodies by William Ruto. And therefore, Raila orphans in ODM will have a lifeline because they will be consolidating the gains. Baba alituacha hapa. It's now so easy. William has actually cracked a formula of holding ODM. So ODM is not going anywhere else. It's now with William Ruto. Do not ask a question because I can tell you it's so easy. If you go to Nyanza today, you just need to pull up Rigiji as a scarecrow and tell people, munaona hii kitu? And I can tell you what they will tell you. Rigiji atatoa jina ya Raila kwa Talanta Stadium. Rigiji atarudisha hii barabara. It will be easier because already Rigiji has made a few mistakes here and there.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, Bosco, do we see a situation whereby now there are options for, and do we ever look at the other options that could come out for political leadership in Kenya, number one? And then is there an agreement that somebody like Rigathi Gachagua will be used to do what people used Raila in Western Kenya, to do what people used Raila Odinga to do in Central Kenya previously?
Thank you very much. The previous day we were here with you, I said some sentiments which are close to what you're asking. People even are fighting me, but they are coming to light. ODM is going to divide itself into 3 groups. It's going to be split. And I said that the previous time I was here, and I'm going to say it again. ODM is going to split into the people who are in Nairobi here are fighting for the survival. Because if someone like Sifuna goes outside this Nairobi and talks about vying elsewhere, popular as he may be, he will have a lot of difficulties. Sometimes, okay, so I'm talking about the 3 groups. It will have Babu Owino, Sifuna, and the groups and the Winnies in one corner. Then you'll have the people who are in broad-based government of ODM will never leave where they are. We are talking about Joho, Oparanya, the Bandis. Those are in government as at now. And the people, and now obviously with Oburu Odinga, the brother now who is taking charge of the party. But it has a rider because Ida Odinga is against that. And in all ways, she has said, for now, Oburu is the one who is in charge. If you listen to the language of Winnie Odinga, Ida Odinga, they are all saying it's just a matter of time. We call an NDC and choose a leader who will be able to propel ODM to where we want it to be. Remember Winnie Odinga saying, Baba left us this idea of broad-based government, and he's the only one who understood it. And so we need to have someone who understands this arrangement of broad-based and to take it to where it's supposed to be. So we'll have the group of the Winnies and the Babus. We'll have the group of the people who are in broad-based government. And probably you have the likes of Anyang' Nyong'o and the outspoken leaders like
James
Orengo. And I would disagree with my mentor when he says there are no casualties. There are a lot of casualties in that ODM. And that's why if you look at the behavior of some of the leaders in ODM, the ones who used to enjoy the support or the forwarding and being given certificates by Baba, they are now in trouble and they don't even know which way to go. These are like they are orphans. They don't know. They are now the good members of the church who don't want to ask any question. They want to be in that arrangement quietly without making any noise.
And we've boxed it into 2 people already, it would appear.
Yeah.
We've boxed this thing to William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua.
Yes.
And it's possible that there are other people who would then be able to come into the arena, or is that not a possibility?
That's where I'm going now. Thank you. So I wanted to tell you that the disunited opposition, to call it that way, because we have already seen two factions of one of Matiang'i, the other one of Kalonzo, and they are already so Gachagua, what Gachagua is doing right now is fence sitting, and Gachagua is just waiting to see who is likely to be with the people in the united opposition, be it Matiang'i or Kalonzo. Then he jumps that side and follows that person, because automatically it's known that Gachagua will not be in the ballot, not unless something changes between here and 2027. As it stands, he's impeached, he cannot run, and so Gachagua, that's where he is. Look at what William Ruto is doing, and dismantling Kalonzo very fast, whereby Kalonzo is this good, diplomatic, polite politician, and he has presented himself that way. But when he tried to make a move to present himself and pull the muscles, William Ruto tells him, hey, stop. Mr. Kalonzo, you want to be president, yet your own Saikuru Road, you have not made it for the last 50 years. Can you deal with that fast so that Kenyans can trust you with all the other roads? You know, when you look at the arrangement of the united opposition, we have challenges there, because if you look at now the candidature of Matiang'i, for example, Matiang'i is a presidential candidate who doesn't have a political party, so to speak. He's the deputy party leader. So when they sit in a boardroom discussing
how can he
about...
be a deputy party leader without being part of a party?
So he's when they sit round table as principals, each and every person has a political party. But he has to come, when they have to sign something about the united opposition, he has to come out and make a call to Uhuru. Hello, Uhuru, can I sign this document? So what we are seeing is a Matiang'i who is not really in the table. In the table, you're sitting the seat with one side, because he's not sure what will happen next. So what you are seeing, and I agree with him, William Ruto is not your ordinary politician. Anyone who is coming to pick the seat from William Ruto, you have to be well organized. This is a gentleman who has moved from selling chicken to presidency on one shot. So you have to be very careful and well organized. You have to have your arsenals put together. Yeah.
As you talk about both sides, so the united opposition and the broad-based government, and the intricacies of what that means towards the next general election, one also looks at the by-election that just happened in the country. We call it Balo 2025, and what that means for 2027. So we have an IEBC that many have said did not perform. Just the other day, the civil society said IEBC did not perform. It did not give Kenyans what they expected. What does that mean moving to 2027? And are we likely to see both political classes now going against IEBC, especially from the united opposition, as we approach the 2027 election?
Okay, as I respond to that, kindly remind me to give us a lesson from Nigeria this year. I think the biggest lesson that would be important if you're summing up the year, there's a lesson from Nigeria. You'll give me a minute on that. I'll talk about that. But then on the by-election, I will still begin from where he's coming from and say that for politics, you do not complicate stuff. Outside here, if you speak about policy or rather strategy, people get suspicious about you. You have to look like it's coming out by luck. Somehow you are just you are lucky circumstance, or you are clever, but then you don't talk about strategy per se. But the truth is this, that you don't make it complicated. Like I have told you, if you were to go to Luo Nyanza today, specifically, because whereas the president last year had actually ensured that, because largely we've been voting around tribes, that is one thing we never want to talk about, but that's the truth. We do, elections are largely tribal census. The president had actually created 2 new tribes that didn't exist before, the working class. They are fast forgetting, actually. The working class had become a proper and serious voting as a tribe. And the second one was Gen Zs. Somehow they are dissolving. If you look at the just war theory, you realize that literally the people we lost in 2024 and those we lost in 2025 almost died in vain, because everything they fought against has been undone. And we are proceeding like nothing happened. That's the truth, including the finance bill that they went to the streets and went to parliament for. The administration of the day worked backwards and did away with it. So whatever way you look at it, men should not be dying in vain. You don't take men a good general shouldn't take men to die in vain. On IEBC not having performed, I'm one person with very low confidence when it comes to this particular IBC. Because over the years, of course, the Kenyan political ecosystem has ensured that we no longer attract talent to IBC. But IBC, the management is good. They know how to do elections. We've not changed the elections. Those guys are ready to do elections any day. But since it's a quoret that it's not fully constituted unless it has got commissioners, I'm talking about the commissioner bit of it.
Okay.
If we were to be fair,
So you mean the Secretariat is doing well?
competently for what the laws we've given them, the Secretariat is good any day to go. Those guys know how to run elections.
Yeah.
Look at 2022. If you were to look at 2022, they handled elections very well. But now, the by-election, we had 22 seats, 24 fully, but then 2 of them were non-contest.
Right.
So even if you had to go with 24, that is 1.2% of what a general election would be, because a general election is 1,882 positions.
Yes.
We only had 24.
And
That is
what we saw.
1.27%. Out of that, from just my own media monitoring, I saw that 10 out of 24 had serious incidents of violence. That is 41%. And I have said this before, that if 21% of polling stations or centers in a general election were to go up in flames like what we saw, IBC, of course, argues that there were only 6. But from if
That
you,
there were any at
Yeah.
all should be the case that IEBC should be
but
pushing.
even if it is 6, that takes it to about 33%. We can go with that argument and say that it's 6 and therefore 33%. If 33% of this country goes up in fire during an election, there is no combined military or security agencies that can actually bring back the country back to sanity. So for me, IBC failed. If it's anything on that, they totally failed.
Yeah.
Second thing that IBC for me failed spectacularly is public communication. I saw the chairman and I saw commissioner who was in Coast. The statements they were making, they were giving their own opinions. And you know, the biggest problem with our election is normally deficit, trust
Deficit, yes.
So some nuances, some pronouncements that they did, I think the commissioners need a serious retraining in public communication, and we need to remind them that as an EMB, the electoral management body, they are not given to their own opinions and how they actually go about. I would have quoted some of those things. So basically, if you have to look at 1.27% as a way to look at how they will perform in 2027, then you have got to be worried specifically with the commissioners. But there was a marked difference if you looked at the returning officers, the staff, where the staff were actually being asked questions. They stuck to facts, figures, and numbers. They did quite well compared to commissioners. And you know, all of us don't care about the staff.
And those are the ones who actually run the election.
The commissioners.
We look at commissioners, and here we have got commissioners who are careless, giving their own opinion, making statements that are border on in the inflammatory, or where people, you know, like if I'm a competitor and you say, no, there was no rigging. You are the chairperson, you are being asked, and he was asked that question in Migori. Were there incidents of bribery? He said, no, there are not. Remember, if I have got a complaint, I have to go to the chair. The chair should leave that open just in case. Instead of him saying, we have not received a report, but or we've had those allegations, we will be investigating.
Looking into them, sure.
His first answer is no. So how am I going to come to you and complain, and I'm supposed to complain to you? So that. Then also saw Commissioner Lutalala in Magarini also giving a lot of his personal opinions, including going into analogies and stepping out of that. They should remember that our problem is not how to count elections. It's trust. And how then do we trust them if they are this careless? They need to look at that. So for IBC, I think Marjan has to do very hard work and retrain his commissioners.
On what
he has done on public communication, especially for an EMB. The work he has done with his ROs and the others, I'm so surprised if they are trained or not. But I think returning officers and IBC staff that were actually asked spoke rather well. You will not have a problem with them. But for commissioners, go back and review what they did. I would be worried.
Bosco, let me come to you, and we're talking about trust, and I want to get back to that because looking at the year where a number of things actually didn't happen that were supposed to, and can you, and it's clearly simple here, that can Kenyans actually trust that things will look better coming into the next electoral period, which we're getting into fast and hard right after the new year, I'm sure. If we look at the things that we see, well, bottom up, well, that's been flung out the window. That never really happened. It's gone. If we're looking at free and fair elections, if we're looking at the rule of law being upheld, I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, I said in this room that it didn't matter that a judge of the court called, again, DCI boss Amin and Douglas Kanja to appear on the 16th of December to explain what happened to Bijiwe. They didn't show up. Rule of law. Can Kenyans get to the place whereby they will trust, if all of these are happening in the same ecosystem, can Kenyans then trust that the developed world is where Kenya will make an entrance into?
Thank you very much. As I answer that, allow me to combine that with what my brother has talked about IBC, and also look at it, and I say, world over, it is a role of the opposition to push for numbers, to push for voter registration. I'm worried when I see the current opposition aiming to topple the current president, where they are not even doing genuine oversight to IEBC, pushing IEBC. IEBC has a very robust, has a very ambitious 6.3 million voters. But what is the opposition doing to push IEBC into telling IEBC, look, you need to go and look for these voters, or rather new registered voters
IEBC needs to
colleges.
be told their job?
No, I'm just saying they don't need to be told their job, but it's the work of leaders to do oversight, the members of parliament, be it in government or opposition. They need to push the IEBC. And by the way, we give credit to IEBC in the by-elections. For me, I saw their creativity in Baringo. When the floods happened, they quickly moved to new places. We have seen the new features they have introduced.
Bosco, this is their job. Bosco, I'm sorry. I need to make a clarification between what you would encourage somebody to do and what they are supposed to do, what they're being paid to do.
I'm not saying they are not doing what they are paid to do. I'm just saying they are more creative this time. I'm just giving them credit. You know, sometimes you can push people all the time looking at the mistakes. And while you want to have the citizens to have confidence in IEBC, you know, sometimes we fight some of these institutions so much, assuming you are the one who is the chair of the IEBC. Would you want people to encourage you or to beat you up? So what I'm saying is, moving into the future, IEBC needs to be more proactive. Let them go to the colleges, to the social media, where these voters are. When they have brought a lot of good creativity, saying voters can vote one day before the election. I think some of these things would really help. But as we are saying that, I agree with her that we need to have institutions well strengthened, well funded, and change of mindset. Even sometimes for us as Kenyans, violence is violence. In a by-election, if violence happens from a government MP or from the opposition, if it's JB Moturi slapping a voter or Keruka Keduka wearing yellow, violence is violence. Code of conduct of IEBC needs to be followed when addressing these issues in elections, in by-elections. Those are the things we need to focus moving into the future. Because if we don't arrest that, we saw IEBC giving fines to members of parliament who had issues on the western side. That was good, but that is not enough. IEBC need to arrest violence by use of institutions like NCIC, DCI, and all that as early. There are things called early warning signs, as early as speeches. You know, hate speech. Hate speech is what contributes to violence in the end. So these are the things that we need to look at in the end, so that we be able to have a credible, verifiable, peaceful country as we move forward.
I mean,
I need you to answer that trust question.
Yes. The trust question.
The question I asked at the beginning is that has it been created a space where Kenyans can trust the process of new things that are being brought in?
It may not be 100% that, Rome was not built in one day. We could be having challenges. However, some of the things I just mentioned are the things that are going to propel this country into a peaceful country, into trusting our institutions. Because when I say about institutions being funded, about talking about IEBC being more creative on looking into areas, I've talked about voting one day before the elections. Those are some of the things I'm talking about. Voter bribery, for example. These are things that have been happening world over, even in this country, even in these by-elections. But let me clarify something. Voter bribery, violence, those are things that are external within, for example, in an election. Because like in this by-election, the voting, both rooms were relatively peaceful. So IEBC, as you said, the management of elections by IEBC, the staff, they did their job and they did it very well. So moving into the future, they need to be more proactive and do what they need to do. But as I say that, when it comes to the results of the election, people can complain about voter bribery, this and that. Gachagua went to Mbeere North saying there are kiosks which were bigger. He opened some, and later on he said we are unable to close these kiosks. Those are the things that contributed maybe to outcome of the elections. Elections does not have number two. And even if you score using a hand, even if you pronounce it, and the referee does not pronounce a handball, it has won. Yeah. So moving into the future, from what we have seen from by-elections, let the opposition be more organized. Otherwise, they're going to lose the election.
Maliba, as you talk about the greatest lesson that you've received from Nigeria, do you think generally that Kenyans are able to trust the government, the agencies that are there, to be able to steer the country moving forward?
Importantly to state is that Kenya as a country is where it is today, not largely because of any deliberate policy action by the political leadership of the day. It's just that we are a resilient people. We have fought our way to where we are today. But a lot of times, government actually does the opposite to ensure that we don't go so far. There is always a push to bring us down, because look at the policies. Today, all our pay slips have actually been raided. From January, NSSF goes higher. And all of us are now being told to metoka bottom up, to Singapore, and we have forgotten. So no one is asking that. So how do you trust the devil? It's not easy. You cannot trust the devil. The government has always actually exemplified that. And that takes me to Nigeria. It's something that I had spoken of. I never thought that it would actually come so apparent. You know, when it comes to corruption, Nigeria and Kenya, there is nothing to learn. Kenyans cannot learn anything from Nigeria when it comes to corruption. Ordinarily, that is what it would look like, because literally we are peers. When it comes to the bad manners of corruption. We are the giants of Africa when it comes to the bad manners of corruption. But I think as the year ended, something happened that all of us should learn from. You know, corruption in the public sector is not possible if not aided by the private sector. It is the private sector that creates the strategies, the avenues to drain the public sector. So there was a fight between Africa's richest man and Nigeria's biggest taxpayer, Aliko Dangote, and the CEO of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, a guy called Farouk Ahmed. Dangote was arguing and has actually been pushing the idea that Farouk should stop licensing more people to import what they refer to as cheaper petroleum products into the country, and then the other 3 or 4 state refineries can also be rehabilitated or sold to other people, and allow him instead of actually bringing oil from elsewhere. But of course, initially, Farouk said that Dangote's oil was full of sulfur. It was tested and found that it was a lie. He went on to say that it's not good to have a monopoly when it comes to energy. Of course, Nigeria has had an issue where people are running around with jerrycans. That is Africa's leading oil producer, but people are running around with jerrycans. So what has happened is that then Dangote moved very fast and said that Farouk's lifestyle cannot, rather how he lives, if you did a scrutiny and you see how his lifestyle is, you realize that he probably gets money outside of that. Do you know that if you were, of course, quickly, Farouk then was called by President Tinubu and he was forced to resign, or rather, he ended up resigning. Do you know that if you were to do that in Kenya, it would become a national security issue? Because if you look at the salaries our members of parliament get or our politicians get and the lifestyles they live, they are worlds apart. A public officer because literally every new building you see in town, it has got some politician attached to it or an entrepreneur to it. Every project that is actually happening around here. If I were to ask you, Ndu, which is Kenya's leading economic sector, you might not be able to actually tell me. But I'll tell you, the Kenya's leading economic sector is actually the public sector, specifically public corruption. So if there's a lesson we've learned from Nigeria this year, is that if the private sector stands up against public corruption, the scourge of corruption in Africa will go down. For the first time, by the way, even the devil can give you a lesson. And when I say Nigerian corruption, like I said, Kenya and Nigeria might not have lessons to learn from each other when it comes to fighting corruption. But at least Aliko Dangote has actually proved one thing that we've always said, that if the private sector were to actually stand up, there will be no public corruption, or at least we will bring it down.
It will reduce
significantly. So, but then if you are to do that in Kenya, I can tell you 100% we will not have a government, because literally everybody will actually have to go home. Because as we go to the end of the year, people in businesses, people in manufacturing, they see a lot of regulators showing up, a lot of government high-handedness. But do you know what people are looking for? People are looking for Christmas money, holiday money, and money to pay private schools. It is simply the same way you will actually see when Dangote actually listed the schools that Farouk's children go to in Switzerland.
Yes, he did.
And he actually say you have used up to between 5 million and 7 million US dollars to educate, I think, 4 or 6 children. But then you are salaried for all that you have worked. So Farouk did not have an option other than to resign after that. I wish our private sector had the backbone to do the same. But then what do we have here? We have got a political system that is actually agents of private sector. So they are brokers. The political system are simply brokers. They are owned by the private sector. That is why you will have a business person standing up and telling you, we wish the president goes for 20 more years. That's a business person.
And that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a bit of a dodgy situation. It looks like we're teetering on ice in terms of what's going to happen coming into the next year. Yeah. And there's obviously a lot of hope that is placed on the shoulders of those perhaps who shouldn't be carrying it. It's an interesting conversation that we've had this morning to be able to look at, the trajectory. Thank you both for being here. Bosco Mutegi and Arnold Mandiba. Asante sana for joining us this morning. Let's wait and see what next year looks like. But thanks for wrapping that up for us this time. Asante, it's 4 minutes past 8.
Thank you.
The latest news from around. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Sour petroleum jelly repairs dry skin like no other. Easy to spread and non-sticky like no